You are muted, Reverend Doctor.
Anticipating Ralph Carter's leadership in our meeting this morning, just to invite our religious leaders whose organizations are members of the caucus and those who are not, that it is in the coming together of people of faith, their religious communities, and the neighbors to those communities that we have invited Justice Task Force to lead us in these conversations on these new laws, which we think will help to develop fairness in our system. Ralph, thank you very much for pulling this all together and for leading us this morning.
Thank you. At this time, there are some old faces and some new faces on the screen. I'm going to ask each person to just briefly introduce themselves. I will start with the first person on my screen, and that is Reverend Ron Little.
I am a member of 12 Corners Presbyterian Church, an elder there, and active with the Genesee Valley Presbytery, and I'm here to learn how I can express my faith.
Thank you. Joanne, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Joanne Balliot. I am the internal organizer for RockX.
Thank you. Barb, are you there? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, this is we sent the Church of the Assumption. I'm Rocky X. I'm board of directors and since about pleased to be here.
Thank you, Barb. It came across a little scratchy. Barb is the treasurer for RockX, and she also chairs the fund development and finance committees. Let's see, Rabbi Stenger.
Hi, I'm actually not a rabbi. I'm Susan Stanger, and I'm the co-chair of the Temple Sinai Social Action Committee. And most recently, we put on a 4-part series called Perspectives on Policing, Past, Present, and Future, which was very well attended, not only by Temple Sinai folks, but people in the community. So I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Reverend Ted Polano.
Hi, I'm Ted. I'm on staff over at Third Presbyterian Church. Glad to see everybody here and be here for this particular conversation.
We have with us today Assemblyman Harry Bronson, but he is going to have a special introduction by Elder Ralph Carter. So we'll wait for that just a little bit. Elder Carter, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Ralph Carter. I'm an elder at Third Presbyterian Church, serving on their governing board, their session. Also a board member of RockX, and very much enjoying working with Dr. Gale and so many others on the Justice System Task Force.
All right. Reverend William.
Hi, Reverend William Wilkinson, Vice President of RockX, pastor at First Presbyterian Church, Medina.
Thank you. Roberta Davis.
Hi, the Interfaith Alliance of Rochester and RockX. I'm on the board and function as one of their secretaries.
Okay. All right. The next that I have on my screen is Jonathan Nabarocha, Esquire.
Excellent. Well, you don't have to add the Esquire, but Jonathan, I'm a member of Downtown United Presbyterian Church, and which is a member of RockX, and as well as I'm a member of the Justice Systems Task Force, and you'll hear from me a little later about Daniel's Law.
Thank you. Laurel Nelson.
Hi, I'm Laurel. I'm with the Presbytery of Genesee Valley and currently chairing the Big Picture team, and grateful to be here today. Thanks for your work.
All right. Sidi Grandoy.
Hey, my name is Sidi Grandoy. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm the statewide organizer for the New York State Jails Justice Network, and I'm also a local organizer for the label, which is Liberate All Black Lives here in Rochester.
Thank you. Shay Herbert.
Hi, it's nice to see you all again. I'm Shay. I'm the Rochester organizer for the Release Aging People in Prison campaign, aka RAP, also an organizer with Free the People Rock, and a member of the Rochester Parole Coalition. So, hi.
Thank you. And I see Debbie. Debbie, I don't see your last name on there, so.
I'm Debbie Rosenfeld. I represent the Rochester Baha'i community on the local governing body, and we're members of ROCAX, and we are also very happy to be here to deal with all these very same issues.
Thank you. And I see C. Santana. I want to say Carlos, but you know that's not right, so.
No, it is Carlos Santana, Action for Better Community, and also a member of UCLM.
All right, thank you. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Lisa Morrell.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm from First Presbyterian Church in Caledonia, and I'm here today as a member of the Big Picture team of Genesee Valley, just learning what I can learn.
All right, thank you very much. And all of you are special guests, and we do have an additional very special guest today. We have Mr. Harry Bronson. So Ralph, would you like to introduce Harry and also maybe just share your connection? Because I think you may know him personally.
Dr. Gale, you're trying to make me blush, but I refuse to blush.
You're doing a good job.
Harry and I go way back. And the more, everyone should know that, Harry is, has been such a force in the community, so many different aspects of the community, and loves this community dearly. He also has a heart of justice, and I have seen that in his work in the LGBT community and his leadership and helping people to get organized, but also people of all walks of life. And Harry, so Harry is the dean of the Rochester delegation in New York State from Rochester now. And I couldn't think of a finer person to help our community, help our state to do the right thing, especially in terms of justice, because of the walk of life that Harry has been on. Harry, I won't say it so much more, except that it was so interesting this morning. I was at the gym and I saw a mutual friend, Larry, won't say his last name. And I was telling Larry about our conversation today. And he said, oh my gosh, what a great person to talk about these topics and to share what's going on and to inspire us, but also to listen and engage us in what can we do to be a part of moving our community forward. Because a number of decades ago, Harry was involved in those leaving an incarcerated period of their life. And I did not know that, Harry. And so welcome to this conversation today, and we're so glad that you were here. I know you're back-to-back meetings. It's a very busy time with the budget and everything, but so glad you can be here today.
Thank you for that introduction, Ralph. All of us have very busy schedules, and all of us are trying to do our very best with racial and social justice. And today I've been made aware of 2 time constraints. I have Jonathan, who has a time constraint for 12, and I have Harry, who has a time constraint. I'm not sure if it was for 12 or 12:15. So if I could just get a little bit of an.
Yeah, I need to go at 12:15 so I can have a meeting with the Lieutenant Governor in connection with violence in the city of Rochester. So
Oh.
12:15 is a very sharp deadline for me.
Okay, that's a hard stop.
Yeah.
All right, then. Jonathan, we have, if you could speak a bit on
Yeah.
Daniel's Law.
I can be brief, and in some ways, I'll probably set Assemblyman Bronson up to talk about it a little more in depth. I just want to, and I have to drop off because Daniel's Law Coalition meets at noon today to talk about us fleshing out the legislation in preparation for the meetings that we have on Friday with Assemblyman Bronson and Senator Brooke. So I'm going to just start this off and ground everyone, as we often do in our Daniel's Law Coalition meetings, that Daniel Prude was a real person, and it did not only the person that everyone sees on the videos, but he was more than that. So that's really what's fueling us to do the work, is for all the Daniel Prudes out there to make sure that they receive the adequate response by individuals who are peer-led and adequately trained to understand what's going on in that situation and provide culturally competent responses to individuals in those situations. We also ground ourselves in these issues are not abstract, they're real, but the solutions are real as well. Often we feel a little bit helpless because we think the solutions aren't out there, but there's a cahoots model that's happening. There's a lot of things that are happening even in New York City, in this state, that are tangible solutions to mental health responses and the adequate response to them. So out of the Daniel Prude tragedy, ROCAX is working with Daniel's Law Coalition and Assemblyman Bronson and Senator Brooke to enable mental health mobile crisis units across New York State. Really, those mobile crisis units will be peer-led. The goal is to have them peer-led and have them provide culturally competent responses to individuals who are experiencing mental health crisis. This is very much a community-led effort by individuals who also have experienced mistreatment by the hands of the police, who are also, while experiencing a mental health crisis. And I'll share an article with you all now, written by one of those members of the Daniel's Law Coalition that was recently published, talking about decriminalizing those individuals who are experiencing that crisis. A mental health crisis. I'll put that in the chat box now. Christina is one of those individuals also offering a tangible response. She started a pilot project in New York City that has actually been responding to individuals experiencing a mental health crisis, and the police have never been called out, and they've been able to respond in a caring way to individuals who are experiencing that mental health crisis, and not required the police to show up. So again, I love that the coalition is comprised of people who understand the issues, but also they're offering a tangible solution to their community as well. I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna urge all of you to support Daniel's Law by participating in Daniel's Day, which is the 23rd. It will be a day really full of individuals sharing their experiences, sharing solutions to this problem, and sharing with you what is needed to make sure that we provide folks who need the help, the adequate help they so need and desire. I also encourage you to, share this information and share your support of Daniel's Law in your communities as well. We have quite a coalition of folks on this call from various religious institutions and religious groups. That's where this also starts. It starts with the community, and the community supporting it in a groundswell moment and saying, let's get this passed at the legislative level. So those are the two asks I ask of you, you all today who've joined the call.
Thank you, Jonathan. Are there any questions for Jonathan?
Save them for Assemblyman Bronson.
Oh, okay, we'll save them for Assemblyman Bronson. Jonathan, do you have a flyer for us?
Yes, I have there's a flyer that was, I believe, provided as a part of the agenda, but I can put it in the chat box as well.
Okay. And Joanne, we have a flyer that can be sent out. Thank you. And I think Ron had his hand up.
Yeah, could I just thank Jonathan for sharing his advocacy letters with the faith communities. 12 Corners was energized by having a draft to work off from, and then it made moving forward much more successful.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. So Assemblyman Bronson, would you like to share your thoughts on these? We know that you are supportive and have been an initiator of some of these bills. So please share your comments with us.
Sure, thank you. And thank you, Jonathan, for outlining Daniel's Law and the importance of that bill. Ralph, thank you for those kind words. You know, it's always great seeing longtime friends and hearing your thoughts on our journey together, actually, and certainly in the LGBTQ arena. And as Ron alluded to, I have been involved in the criminal justice system. My undergraduate degree is in public justice, which really had a focus on my pre-law program, but had a substantial element of criminal justice involved in it. And at that time, certainly, you know, my education was one of a progressive perspective in the criminal justice arena, although in practice, that's not what we were doing. Ultimately, through a long journey, I did have a stint with Cephas Attica, where I was the executive director, and we ran group support programs in both state-run and county-run facilities. We also ran 3 transitional homes, primarily for individuals coming out of the state system, 2 homes here in Rochester and 1 in Buffalo. And frankly, or interestingly, one of the most significant learning experiences of my life was being interviewed for that position in Attica State Prison by a gentleman who I grew to respect tremendously, who was a lifer and would never be released from prison. And you know, it really that experience created a much more in-depth understanding of how harmful our criminal justice system is, and how, as a Christian myself, it really does not adhere to the belief of forgiveness. And so you know, I come from that perspective, the Christian perspective, but I know this is you know, a broader coalition, which I think is great, and so happy that you all are participating in that. I live by, in my personal life, in my business life, in my activism life prior to getting involved in government, and now as a legislator, a very simple proposition. And that proposition is that no matter who you are, where you come from, what your ability, what you look like, who you love, or how you identify, we all have dignity. And with that dignity, we deserve full equality, justice, and an opportunity to succeed. These 3 bills that you're looking at is totally aligned with that proposition. Someone who is suffering a mental health crisis or a substance use crisis should be met with kindness, compassion, and with people who are professionals who know how to help, instead of being met with a response of control and a response of force, a response that, quite frankly, comes right out of the slave patrols of yesteryears. And we need to change that. Daniel's Law, with the help of advocates like Jonathan and so many people in the community who were willing to have real conversation. You know, we started to develop the language. Then when Senator Brooke got elected, she joined us. And now, as Jonathan mentions, we're working to tighten up the language, make it stronger, but to hold to that ideal. And that is transformative change, where we respond to mental health crises with compassion. And it's not about involuntary control and forcing people to do things because we're not willing to work with them to get them over that moment. So I'm anxious to continue that work, and we will continue that work because we do need that change. The other two bills regarding parole are very important bills. I'm a co-sponsor on each of those bills as well. Shay, I see you on the call. Thank you for helping me understand the bills. Shay had advocated with other folks on these bills. And, let's take a step back. I participate with the Rochester Monroe County Anti-Poverty Initiative, RMAPI. And the number one indicator of people living in poverty is whether or not you have a criminal record. The number one indicator. And so our system is set up that really does not help people make the transition back into our communities. And you will see in our state budget, we have done a lot of things to help in that regard. There's funding for reentry programs. I chair economic development, and we have a particular grant program in economic development that is going to be identified to help people re-enter into society and get workforce development and get jobs. But as these two bills are related, this is happening. This addresses how do we get people back into the community? How do we allow them to have, and I don't like the phrase, I was going to say pay their dues, but I don't like that phrase. They have done what they need to do under the system as it's set up. And we need to acknowledge that and allow them the opportunities. So, we have a system that allows judges to set minimum sentences. So that's at the time of sentencing, the opinion that you serve that amount of time and you can be considered to be released. But unfortunately, our parole system doesn't really acknowledge that, and their focus is solely on the original crime and not on where is the person at now. Are they a person that will likely be successful in their transition back into the community, and for that matter, transition back to being a direct member of their family, right? We're talking about fathers and mothers and siblings, and they're integral to the success of their whole family unit, and we need to be helping them. So what the bill does is it makes that change so that instead of the focus being on what was the original crime, and in essence, being a judge all over again and saying, because the original crime was so horrendous, we're not going to let you do just the minimum. You're gonna stay in for a longer period of time. That determination was already made at the sentencing part of the trial. It should not be made again by parole. Their job should be, will this person be able to be a successful person in the community? Will they not present a threat to the community? Will they not go out and commit another crime? And factored in that with the transitional period of being on community supervision through the parole system. So what the bill simply does is it moves us to what the original intent of the law was, and strengthens the language to prevent parole the parole board from putting undue emphasis on the original act and original crime. And then the elder parole is just a common sense piece of legislation. It's not contrary to some of the rhetoric out there. It's not about, just letting a person out if they reach 55 years of age. That's not what it does. It just requires a review. If they reach 55 years of age, and we know statistically, older folks typically do not recommit crimes. But if they reach that age, they've served 15 years of their sentence, then they would be considered for parole. And again, this is about reuniting families. It's about giving people a chance. In both of these bills, if you want to be callous and you want to just talk about the money, on both of these bills is actually going to save the state and taxpayer dollars by not keeping people incarcerated who frankly just don't need to continue to be incarcerated. They don't need that kind of supervision any longer. So I'm supportive, obviously, of Daniel's Law. It's my bill, and the other two bills as well. I was supportive of the less is more. I don't know if you talked about that in your arena, the bail reform. On those two issues, we have an election year coming up, and I don't want to be political, but the reality is those of us who are progressive in this arena are going to get bombarded by misinformation about both the bail system and less is more. And so whatever you can do to educate folks out there will be greatly appreciated. But let me just close with this statement. So you all have a great Rochester delegation, by the way, in the majority conferences. We now have 6 members, 4 of us in the Assembly, 2 in the Senate. I want to share with you that we meet on a weekly basis. We talk almost every single day. We have done programming with Reverend Myra Brown last year and again this year to help us better understand as policymakers, how can we look at the decisions we make from a policy and a fiscal standpoint, how can we look at that through a racial lens? And we have made a commitment as a delegation that when we're making decisions, we want to know, are we removing barriers to equity, or are we taking a step to incentivize and move us toward equity? These bills that you're considering are part of that analysis. All of these are dealing with the racial injustice that we see in our law enforcement arena and in the criminal justice and corrections arena. And so that's another reason why I'm so very supportive of these bills. And thank you for your advocacy, because as you know, as legislators, we can only do so much. We need advocates out there that are having your voices heard and making sure that the correct information is out there and you're educating people. So we're in a partnership here, and I thank you for that partnership, and I thank you for your work to right some of the wrongs of the past through this legislation and otherwise. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Assemblyman Bronson. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments for the Assemblyman? Any questions or comments at all? Any thoughts that you would like to share at this time? I'm getting some messages in the chat. Do you want to say them out loud?
Hey, yeah, I'm on Stack here. I just wanted to just reiterate, what Harry Bronson was saying, you're saying the right things. And, we've been advocating a long time for safety in Rochester and alternatives to jail and prisons and more funding for resources that are proven to increase safety in our communities. We've all been dealing with the fallout from, you know, the lack of the resources that we've been having in the city for years. You know, we're on the ground here, we're living in these communities, and we're like dealing with the families that are, you know, victims of the violent crimes that we've seen, you know, locally here. And, you know, it's all been, you know, contributed to just a lack of resources and, you know, not having just enough advocacy, you know, and funding and, you know, and things that are proven to reduce crime, you know, like, you know, I recently was at the rec center on Avenue D, where like the basketball court was just full of kids, just completely packed with kids in there. And there was only 3 staff there for the whole day to watch all these kids and, you know, provide for all these kids. And, you know, while I was filling up one of the food pantries that's outside of there, you know, I was asking the folks, you know, the staff there, like, you know, what do you guys need? Like, what's like the main thing that you would need to, you know, just to help with anything? And, you know, part of it was just like, you know, just funding, you know, just being able to put food on the table and be able to come back and have more staff available, you know, to help keep these kids, you know, like out of like any danger, any trouble. Those are the things that like, you know, that keep the city safe. And, you know, when you have Harry, this conversation, I think we said with the lieutenant, just please emphasize, you know, how much, you know, resources matter to like Black and brown kids in this community, and not just increasing like, you know, just police presence in jails and, you know, and all this state violence that we've been seeing in this city for way too long.
I definitely will relay that information to the Lieutenant Governor, and you should know when he was senator prior, and he was the lead person on the bail reform, so he definitely gets it. He's a man of color, and so he gets it from that perspective as well. And so I will relay that information, and I'm hopeful, you know, the mayor is going to be in this meeting along with the county executive and our state delegation. So we have had conversations on how vitally important funding is, and that we're funding also those organizations that are on the ground. They may not be sophisticated enough to, you know, write grant proposals and all the traditional way that we get resources out, but they're the ones that have the effective results. So part of our conversation today is going to be about how can we create a path to get that funding to the smaller organizations that have you know, the people of trust who are running them and interfacing with folks who need help in the community. And so we're going to have that conversation as well. So funding, as well as getting that funding to the right organizations, especially those who are on the ground doing the work.
I think I'm next on. Not really a question, just a comment to say thank you, Assemblymember Bronson, for not only your accessibility, but your remaining teachable when it comes to like the parole bills and the things that we need for criminal justice reform. It was like such an honor to like even get you off the floor in Albany on Monday to talk to you briefly about your support for the bills and what it looks like when you talk to your colleagues while you are in this crazy legislation session. So just to thank you, and I look forward to continuing the work on pushing things forward here in Rochester.
Thank you, Shay.
Thank you. I think Mr. Santana.
I have a quick question. My question has to deal with, I know this funding has been allocated for forensic intervention team, people in crisis team, the mental health crisis team, but all the funding that has been allocated doesn't include them hiring Black and Latinos to help with these individuals that are having their crisis. So basically, we're back to square one, and I'm hoping that maybe you could talk to someone or make them understand that the money's coming in because it's affecting Black and Latinos, and we expect them to be hiring more Black and Latinos. Can you tell me what can we do and what can you do to make that happen? Because it's in deaf ears. I keep talking about it and nothing happens, and I'm desperate already.
I fully appreciate and understand that. And a lot of the people who are part of the advocacy team for Daniel's Law have brought that issue to us. Daniel's Law has a small component of that embedded in the law if we get it passed. That would move us toward that. I also am doing a lot of work in the mental health arena well, let me back up. And also in Daniel's Law, as Jonathan mentioned, there's an emphasis on peer-to-peer counseling. So that the intent there is the peers would be people of color, Black and brown folk. And then the other thing in the mental health arena, which we've had a couple of successes last year with bills put into law that would require Medicaid reimbursement. So folks of lesser means would have access to mental health services. But we are working with the higher education folks in connection with creating a pipeline of Black and brown folks to get into the mental health fields, whether you're talking mental health counselors, marriage and family therapists, social workers, psychology, and actually the U of R, which has a department of psychiatry, which encapsulates all of those disciplines, not just psychiatry. They're putting together a program that would help folks who are Black and brown to get involved in that arena. So, part of, we're doing these intervention crisis teams and putting that together, but you also have to have folks who are trusted. And that's usually folks who look like me, right? And I certainly know that as a gay man. Very different, as I often say, I know what it's like to be oppressed, but I only know that as a white gay man who also happens to be a white privileged man. All right. So, we need folks who are, being culturally sensitive isn't enough. All right. We need folks who are representative of the community that they're serving. So fully on board. There's a lot of work we have to do in that end. And I will also say I'm a strong believer that racism is a public health crisis. And so we've got to keep fighting. And part of that solution is having people of color involved in delivering the services, but more importantly, that they're the leads in coming up with the solutions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Santana, your hand is still up. Do you have an additional comment? No, thank you. Anyone else have comments? I have 12:14. So Assemblyman Brunson is about to fly out of here. Thank you. I just had one comment. I understood that that peers may not necessarily be certified or licensed, and that may be a problem in having them as a part of the intervention process. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. There is, in the broader spectrum, peers are trained individuals, and they may not have a particular certification in a particular mental health profession, but they have a key role to play, especially as we make the transition and we don't have enough people of color in these professions. The peer can play the role as the trusted voice and the trusted listener in that setting. And there's all kinds of evidence that shows that peers in the mental health arena and peers in the substance abuse arena are extremely successful. There's been research and lots of data that shows that they are, but you're right. There's still a need for those who are certified and licensed in the professions to be part of the overall team. So it's a team approach there. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
And with that, I am going to exit. This has been great. I'm happy to field any other questions, or people can call me directly Ralph has my cell phone number, and well, I'll just give it if people want to write it down. It's 585-233-8789, 233-8789. Don't hesitate to call. If you don't come up on my contacts, you'll go to my voicemail, but I will call you back if you tell me who you are. That's better than listening to, solicitations from Spectrum, et cetera. So anyway, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you, and keep up the good work out there.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Thank you very much. Well, any reflections on this? We still have the city. Oh, there you are. We still have City and Shay, because I really would like for them to give us some update and some information about the elder parole law, and also fair and timely parole. And really those two go together. So either one of you could start.
I don't know, City, are you working on the parole bills? 'Cause I talk about them all the time, so please. Okay, thank you. Well, Assemblymember Bronson was our latest sign-on for Rochester, so he's on both bills, and the only legislator here is Assemblymember Lunsford, who we are still trying to get on the bills. I actually spoke with Lunsford in person. I went to Albany on Monday and spent the day at the Capitol. I did a few drop-ins and pop-up meetings with legislators or their staffers, and Lunsford did voice her support for elder parole and just some concerns with signing on because of her district. So she has a few questions up very timely. So I'm working with her legislative director to see what those questions are and if we can get them answered to get her support on both bills. As far as elder parole, we have legislator Hinchy who signed on while we were up in Albany. So that was a big move for us because Hinchy was not for it. So I guess popping up on legislators in their offices works a little bit. And that's really just the updates as far as the parole bills. I think the biggest thing that we need from like Rochester, especially from this coalition, is support on our sign-on letter, which I can drop in the chat. Also canvassing, we're canvassing March 26th on the parole bill. So if you can reach out to your prospective groups and have folks come down and help us knock on doors, that would be great. And the last thing really is just attending the Rochester RAP meetings if it's you yourself or if you're sending your members to come and see what we got working on right here in the community. So that's it, just small but significant updates, nothing too major right now.
Does anyone have a question or a comment for Shay? Well, Shay, I would like to make sure that we have those logistical pieces. Can you make sure that Joanne gets those so that she can send them out, so that signing on to the letter, it's the door-to-door, and I think there was a meeting time. So those three things we can certainly distribute to our constituents.
Yeah, I will drop the sign-on letter here in the link, and I'll also email it to Joanne along with the canvas and sign up.
Okay.
And I see your hand. I don't know if it's for me or if it's for Dr. Hill. So
it doesn't matter. Thank you, Shay. But it's probably for you, Ralph.
Oh, it is. Shay, I think it's we've had some conversations about doing some in-district educational events. And we are trying to organize some within Jen Lunsford's district. There was a wonderful conversation that we had in the last Albany day with her staff, and then follow up in that regard. And thank you for sharing the very latest, Shay. But Jen Lunsford is in an interesting district. It's evolving district, in terms of its awareness and knowledge of what is needed in the city. There are a number of, and I think that Jen is all about education. So anything that we can do education-wise within district will really help these bills and help the advocacy for these bills. So we have a great model that the coalition with Shay and others in the coalition put together, which involves people sharing their story, giving the facts, some of the facts about how this helps the parole justice bills help families to heal and communities. And in fact, it very well may be the best way for families and communities to come together and to thrive, is to have the wisdom of their elders in community, in the neighborhood, to share the family legacy, the history of their forebears. And only the elders can really do that. So they need to be home and they need to help the healing in the community. So if your congregation is within Jen Lunsford's district, especially, I think it would really help her to know that we have her back, as she considers these bills.
And just to quickly add on to that, I know that Assemblymember Lunsford recently sent out a poll to her constituents regarding elder parole. And she said that she received overwhelming support for elder parole, but like no support for like the Healthcare Act or any of the other things that people, like they turned down the healthcare, but they wanted to support elder parole. So that was to her. Her concern also was, I guess, an opponent in re-election, and if she co-sponsors publicly, her opponent could, I guess, twist it and she could lose her election, which I don't know politics like that, so I don't understand all of that stuff. But we're working on another survey for Fair and Timely to go out to her constituents, and I can loop whoever wants to be looped in on that process as well. Also, back to like what Ralph said, an event in her district that directly engages her constituents to see how much support we really have for the bills, to see if we can get her to publicly support. So, yeah.
That's great. Any other comments or questions for either City or Shay? None right now. I see a couple of new people have joined us. I see Barry Swan. I haven't seen you in a while, Barry. Do you have any comments that you'd like to share with us?
No, unfortunately, I just got on. I was out at Nazareth College on their student day when high school students are out there. So I did a session out there and I just managed to hook on with you about 5 minutes ago. So
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Annette, I see you just came on a bit ago. Do you have something you'd like to share with the caucus?
Not really. I'm just attending for Sacred Heart Cathedral.
All right. Okay, thank you. And I see City has some additional information for us.
There we go. I'm muted. Yes. I appreciate, what you folks are doing, all the work that's happening around, parole and just the advocacy for folks in prison. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to just quickly start off by just saying, well, one, free Shamal Grandois, my brother, who has been in jail awaiting trial since Christmas Day of 2020. And also free Jalen Johnson, who has been jailed since October due to lack of housing resources, and then subsequently a lack of mental health resources here in Rochester, New York. I currently organize with the New York State Jail Justice Network. It's an organization that pushes back against mass incarceration based wherever it shows its head. There's, since there's a ton of like great work happening and advocacy happening towards like the state prisons, we focus more on jails, and more specifically jails outside of New York City. If you go into any coalition meeting that's talking about mass incarceration, it's mostly focused on state prisons, and in any conversation that's around jails is centered towards Rikers. And there are a ton of jails throughout the state, that are not Rikers and that are like even worse than Rikers, like Broome County in Binghamton, also Erie County in Buffalo. So real quickly, I had gotten information yesterday actually that bail reform, which I'm sure a lot of you folks were even like a part of the talks of implementing bail reform back in 2019, is on the chopping block up in Albany. Governor Hochul has basically capitulated to the calls for like the district attorneys throughout the whole entire state, and the police unions, and the Republicans as well, and also Democrats who have been pushing back against bail reform and falsely, blaming the rise in violence to bail reform. There's like Harry Bronson was saying earlier, there's like a ton of misinformation going on around bail reform. And Harry Bronson actually was a big champion of the whole entire pushing forward bail reform for years now. So back in 2019, bail reform was put in, pushed like for after years of results of policy development driven by like coalitions like stakeholders like yourselves, and then including families of people who have lost loved ones due to pretrial incarceration. All of it was grounded in evidence-based practices that have been proven to reduce unnecessary pretrial jailing, and keeps communities safe. Currently, the reactionary pretrial rollbacks to the reform enacted in 2020 were pushed by just like, of course, like a ton of misinformation by the police unions, and me personally, I think is due to like it's due to money. The misinformation. Currently, well, back before 2019, bail nationwide is a $2 billion industry. There's a lot of money to be made around bail. A lot of bail bondsmen prey on families dealing with like the worst times of their lives, and use those times to extract money and extort money out of folks. I've dealt with it myself, me and my family, giving up every last penny that we had to make sure that our loved one was out of jail and not just rotting away in jail. And able to fairly fight against like this already unjust system. It has been accumulating a ton of money, and currently now these folks are lost their way of extracting money from folks through the bail. So they're all lobbying and pushing back to actually have the bail reform roll back. And currently they're winning right now. They're actually winning. So real quick, all objective measures show that bail reform has been a success in New York State. Lawmakers currently right now are, we need them to prioritize defending the reform against like further amendments that are being pushed out by Governor Hochul, allegedly by Governor Hochul, which will be including the DATs, that's the desk appearance tickets. They're trying to make it so that folks can be held over just the simplest desk appearance tickets that that they can't be held right now because of the bail reform. And they're also looking to amend, give judges the ability to consider dangerousness as a part of whether or not to give folks bail or not. That New York State has never had dangerousness as a part of setting bail for folks. Currently right now, like everybody is innocent until proven guilty. There is no law that says that folks need to be held in jail due to before they're convicted. And so currently right now, what we need folks, what we need from everybody, and especially in Rochester, is to just push back against this language of that's for rollbacks on the bail reform. Bail reform is actually making our city safer as opposed to making it less safe. When folks are able to come back home after being arrested, they're able to continue to take care of their families, continue to keep their apartments. A lot of folks lose their apartments when they go to jail. They're able to keep their jobs, and all of these things contribute to keeping our community safer. So, I have Dr. Harrison has been telling me to get together some type of like flyers or language that could be sent out to folks and sent out to the media. So I have that, and I'll put that in the chat for folks, and I could take any questions around the bail issue. Thank you.
Thank you, City. Thank you for that. Any questions or comments regarding bail reform or any of the other parole? Let's see. Laurel, I see your hand, and Ralph, I see yours.
Thank you. Thank you, City, for a really concise update on the pushback against bail reform. I live in rural Livingston County, and it's basically the only thing we hear are the fear tactics that Carlos brought up in the chat. So I just wondered if you could link us to like the latest resources that we can work to kind of counteract those the fear tactics. That would be really helpful. And then maybe prioritize. I saw Carlos also added calling Governor Hochul's office. Would that be the most helpful thing right now? Or what are your ideas about the most helpful actions at this point?
I think so. So definitely calling Governor Hochul's. I think she's like the primary target currently. There have been a lot of folks that we've been trying to push back against, a lot of legislators that we've been trying to push back against. I know like Mayor Eric Adams in New York City has recently went to Albany to advocate for the rollback of bail reform. The Republicans came out in droves when that happened, which was like, just really disgusting on his part. And he also was pushing for like reinstating solitary confinement for longer than 15 days, which is, literally torture. And he's trying to call it something else. I think he's trying to call it, I forget the term he used. It was something like punishment, punitive segregation, as opposed to solitary confinement. So he's just playing like, just purposely using misinformation and using these like sly, and he's like literally lying to get folks, to go back to these old torturous tactics that we know doesn't work. So to your question, yes, we should definitely be contacting Governor Hochul's office and speaking with like, the lawmakers. I know Harry Bronson is already on board and he's, ready to fight for bail reform, but we need to make sure that the legislators that are for bail reform know that there's a bunch of folks on the ground that are in support of bail reform and want to hold the line at bail reform, and not only hold on at bail reform, but then increase, the resources for the people in the community to make our community safer. The last thing is that I'm going to Albany on Tuesday. Actually, I'm going to Albany on Saturday and Tuesday. I'm taking like 2 back-to-back trips basically to advocate for the bail reform. So if folks are, could just plan to just make as many calls you can, or even take a trip to Albany, that would be amazing. But one of the main things is like that we need is like for folks to push back against this negative language around bail reform and this false equivalency to the increase in crime in bail reform.
Thank you, City. Ralph, Carlos, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I got someone who sent me the bill that was passed, because the bill passed and it's just on Hochul's hands for her to read it and sign it, and it passed in the morning. You know how they stay up sometimes really late at night all the way into the morning, and they snuck it in there. And we have to make sure that we keep going and letting her know, don't sign that, because once she signs it, and she's been kind of like turning to the other side, because this was Cuomo's baby, it was protecting the less fortunate, and Cuomo had that kind of heart. I mean, he did his things, but he cared about the people. And so now we have these people that are saying he's not around no more, and she supports a lot of the law enforcement initiatives. So we have to be careful, but we have to be on top of this, letting her know, whoa, you can't do this. You can't do this. I don't know how many of the senators or legislators or assembly people were the ones that signed in, because I'm not too much into the politics of it, but I do know some people that send me the information. I'm trying to remember the bill's name. I'm gonna find it. I put it somewhere in one of my folders, And I got like 20 folders, so I have to really find out so I could send it to Dr. Gill so everybody could look at it. Because when I read it, I'm going like, oh my God, it's only 7 o'clock in the morning. And these people already were doing this. They sneak attack. They do things that people don't even know about. So we have to do a lot of advocacy to make sure that this doesn't happen.
All right.
It's gonna
Does
hurt
everybody
a lot
know
of poor
how-
people.
Thank you. Does everyone know how to get in touch with Governor Hochul? They have phone numbers, emails?
I think I got her number because the guy sent us her, one of the lawyers sent us her number. I just gotta, I gotta know where I put it, but I'll find it and I'll send it, all the information to you guys.
Okay, you can. And also, I just Google everything. I ask for the contact. So it's not something that's secret or held back. Ralph, we're kind of moving right into what it is.
Sorry, Dr. Harris, sorry, one last thing. Oh yeah, Ralph already put it right there in the chat. I was gonna just get an email together because like apparently my link isn't working in the chat. So I was gonna put that together to send out to folks, just the data, the research, and like the information that I was talking about just now. And also like when folks do decide to call Governor Hochul, Governor Hochul just agreed to give the bills, stated to give the bills $1 billion of taxpayer money. $1 billion. Like, this is a fact. We've been asking, the state for that type of money for a long time. And she is taking similar tactics that Cuomo has, right? These little back room, just quiet, and pop out legislation before anybody could know what's going on. And then she's like, trying to pull away from this thing that Cuomo put in to make it seem like she's against Cuomo and she's, for like hearing the people and for increasing safety, which is all nonsense. And it's all just, they understand what the issues are, but we need to make sure that, we're gonna let them know that we're gonna hold them accountable if they don't follow through with what the people want. So so please let Governor Hochul know, instead of just focusing on bill reform, she needs to focus on sending that type of money that she's sending to the Buffalo Bills, where she's actually from Buffalo, to the rest of the state when it comes to decreasing crime and increasing funding for crime preventative programs locally in Rochester here. Thank you.
Thank you. Ralph, I think we could move right into, there were some asks that you had thought about and wanted to share with this caucus.
Yes, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for everyone who's been speaking. City, Shay, this is just amazing testimony to what needs to happen, and we need to hear this and amplify and walk with you and with others in the community. And thank you, Carlos, for your words. I was just also reminded, we have got to watch the governor very, very carefully. I remember listening to her comment, and I had just listened to a fabulous podcast called Black History for White People. And in it, they were talking about essentially the evolution after the Civil War, slavery through imprisonment and free labor, and how when the crops getting ready to get going, then all of a sudden people are arrested and put in jail and put in prison. And that's free labor. And part of the problem right now is you've got privatization of prisons, and you've got people that are big corporations. We're talking about harvesting in Arkansas for cotton. Okay, that's why the United States is now third largest behind China and India. The caste system in India, the people incarcerated in China, it's free labor. And Hochul, in one of her addresses, actually suggested that we use that labor in prison. So it's slavery by another name. We have to watch it. I put in the chat, and it's the specific asks is that we really work together in terms of let's collaborate on these things and work as the amplify the voices and get a common voice and messaging and then spread it out through our various constituencies. And we put it very early in the chat some of the things really coming up. Please sure to go and be a part of the teach-in regarding Daniel's Law. The family, as I understand it, will be there, and I can share it in the chat again. Let me see. Yeah, copied. Okay, it's coming. So this is a list of everything that I had, but also the one pager from the New York Civil Liberties Union is very good on Daniel's Law, and there's a great article that that was referred to earlier about the mental health advocates. And then in terms of elder parole, the day after next Thursday, is the interview documentary, a free 20 minutes, Shay, roughly?
Yeah, 21 minutes.
Yeah, it's a very short. It can be used in your adult education, your social justice. You can have it within your congregation, and then please consider inviting people who have personal testimony that can bring it home as why these bills are needed in our community to help the healing and to improve community safety. I'm really convinced it's elders coming home that can really make that happen. So get knowledgeable about these bills and their campaign materials, speaking to it about like for parole justice, voices from the inside, some of the written testimony, as well as survivor justice. I wonder if Shay, do you want to share? Can you share something about the April, and then we'll be done with it. The April event. I put something in it about a trip to Albany.
Yeah, sure. So for our advocacy day in April, we're going back in person. So I will be organizing maybe a bus of 2 of folks from Rochester to ride up to Albany to meet up with all of our folks from Long Island and Westchester, New York City, to advocate for the parole bills. And our focus is survivors justice and what that looks like for folks who are survivors of harsh crime but don't believe in carceral punishment, myself included. So there'll be testimonies from survivors who have, endured serious harms and why they advocate for transformative justice over carceral punishment. So come through, holla at me. I'll be on the bus with folks and it's going to be lit. So yeah.
So thank you so much. So if you know of other events that need to be amplified and publicized, please let us know. You can drop it in the chat or send it to either me or to Joanne or Dr. Gale or Dr. William. But thank you so much for your participation and spread the word.
Any other comments or thoughts that you'd like to share on this topic? I see Barry has his hand raised.
Yeah, I just want to mention that tomorrow at the Interfaith Alliance board meeting, we're going to have a representative talking about the New York State Health Act. If you want more information on that, I know it's not the subject we're talking about today, but if you want the opportunity to listen to a person on the New York State Health Act and why it should be promoted, get in touch with me or Roberta Davis, and we will hook you up with the a link. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And on that note, I would like to thank everyone here who has attended this extraordinarily informative meeting. I'd like to specifically thank City, Shay, Harry Bronson for coming. And I'd like to thank each of you who are representing your faith affiliation and your faith organization, because the bottom line is that there are things that are unjust. And just because there are laws that support things that are unjust does not mean that we have to go along with them. Our job is to make sure that the unjust and inhumane activities that are built into law are not enforced on people and that we eradicate those things. And so I'd like to commend Susan for her social action committee for making it an effort. I'd like to commend Laurel for the the intent that she is getting ready to do. I can tell you getting ready to call Governor Hochul and tell her a few things and have your members do the same thing also. And each of you have a role to play. And I ask that each of you take up that mantle and do what is necessary to make these changes. Barry, you're trying to have one last word. I'm trying to end it on this positive note here. All right, we now have our closing prayer by Reverend William.
Just before we pray, just to encourage our religious leaders who are here, that you and your teammates are organizers of your faith community. And so everything that we share today is something that we encourage you to share back home. And not only in your community itself as you organize, but with your community partners in the local areas that you are either living in or serving, or preferably both. This is difficult stuff that we're trying to work on. It reminded me of something I read in a book called Faith-Rooted Organizing, which can be a really good resource for all of us. There was a time when the United Farm Workers lost 100,000 members in contracts to the Teamsters. And it was a kind of a discouraging time. Dolores Huerta, one of their organizers, said to Cesar Chavez, "What do we do now?" And Chavez answered her, being a person of faith, "This is the time for us to look for the things unseen." And so remembering that their long-term struggle that led to success had many ups and downs and starts and much opposition, but it was their faith. And as Harry Bronson talked about his faith, it is our faith which makes the difference in our energy, in our capacity for organizing around our values. So then let us be in a time of prayer. Spirit of life, we come to you from many paths to your holy mountain. It is our hope and our prayer this day that your presence can be taken seriously in our work, that the hope that comes from our faiths may be more powerful than what is invested by those who oppose us. Nowhere is hope tested more fully than in the social context of the poor, O great one. And it is then that we hear the call of the poor. It is there that we root our faith-rooted organizing. We don't do it alone. We do it not only with one another, but with your leading. Spirit of life, we thank you for giving us enough in life so that we may be struggling for justice. And together we say, each in our own way, Amen, amen.
Amen.
Blessings to everyone for being here today.
Thank you, everyone. Bye now.